Much, Professor Kachut. So it's my great honor and pleasure to introduce as the next speaker my dear friend Victor Tsetlin. Victor Tsetlin always was one of the key figures of this cooperation between Evgeny Grishin and the Institute, and he was the key developer of the idea of using toxins as tools to elucidate the structure of receptors and ion channels. At that time, at initial times, together with Prof, the former vice director of the deputy director of the institute, together with Ivanov. And I should mention, among the many honors which I could tell you he received in his life, one honor was that he gained the Humboldt Prize, which allowed him to work for more than a year in my institute in Berlin. And from that time, a very intensive collaboration originated, and we have many publications together. Victor, it's my pleasure to hear you.
Well, today we said so many warm and good words, and also a very interesting slides were shown before the opening this bas-relief, and Vadim Ivanov presented a very interesting collection. So it's very difficult for me to add something really new or original to what we already heard today. But so this is just my reminiscences and and I would add some good words from me and from the toxins on which both Eugene and myself we were working. Well, it's already mentioned, and Eugene himself told how the toxins story started at our institute, that Ovchinnikov initiated it. It's correct, and in fact, the beginning of my toxin, not very toxic biography, is also due to efforts of Ovchinnikov, Ivanov, and Grishin, because in 1973 I've got my PhD on synthesis of cyclic peptides, and Ovchinnikov and Ivanov, they decided that toxins should be, the work on toxins should be extended to go to some spatial aspect, because their previous work of Ivanov, Shemyakin, Ovchinnikov, it was spatial aspects of interactions, of different interactions, and they wanted to make certain steps in this direction. And so the start was this paper of Eugene. They isolated the toxin from the Middle Asian cobra from Uzbekistan. It was not too many primary structures could be established in those years, and they very generously gave certain amounts to us, and we started chemical modification of these toxins, because the first task was, let's try to learn something about the spatial structure. And I'm happy that at our institute at that time was Vladimir Bystrov, I would say sort of NMR genius, and with our several derivatives, at least they could make partial assignments for the first time in the world in the NMR spectrum of toxins. What is the pointer? I cannot press the pointer. Somebody can help me? Okay, just show. Yeah. Oh, so kind, have help from Germany. Excellent. So you see here the primary structure from Eugene Grishin work. And these two loops are shown here in the opposite direction. But our NMR studies demonstrated that, in fact, loop 2 and 3 are in proximity. I don't know how successful we would have been, but the same year and year later, two independent groups, one from England, another from the United States, they determined the X-ray structure of a very relevant toxin, arabotoxin. And so the world changed, and now these toxins are used widely, and they have a name of three-finger toxins. I apologize, I never use this. I should take my own. Yeah. Well, so the work on toxin was continued in Eugene Grishin lab, and in my group that time in the frames of Vadim Ivanov lab. And you know, our fate is unpredictable, our connections, the joint work and so on. In 1980, I managed to go to Yugoslavia to a Kalinergic meeting, and there I was lucky to meet a great man, Professor Eric Barnard, fellow of Royal Society, who was one of the key figures on nicotinic receptors. And it happened so that he was invited to our institute, and also he met Eugene, and the result was not too often in those years that we spent with Eugene Grishin the whole month in January 1982. And this connection, they continued. And in particular, it was not fast in those years, but Eugene's colleague Solovyov somehow worked certain time in Eric Barnard lab, and not very soon, but 1988, you see a paper appeared, and among the authors you see Solovyov, you see Eugene Grishin, you see Eric Barnard, and another key world-known person in toxin, Asherwood. Well, we don't have too many joint papers with Eugene Grishin, but I'm very proud of this one. You see there here three authors, Ovchinnikov, Grishin, Tsetlin, and it was a talk which Yuri Ovchinnikov presented at a very prestigious conference, and it is dedicated to photoactivatable neurotoxins in studying membrane receptors. And we were using the snake toxins, and Eugene Grishin was also using photoactive derivatives of toxin acting on sodium channel. Well, so not too many details, and what today Ferdinand Huch already mentioned that, okay, we were the first to identify the mode of toxin binding to the receptor, but in those days, receptor, we presented it as a sort of egg, because it was not cloned, the structure was known, and so on and so on. But then, good work needs years, and I'm happy that some years later, a paper appeared which among the authors here, you see Mahold, Utkin, somewhere Tsetlin, and Ferdinand Huch, and we've got real information that how toxins are bound between the two neighboring subunits. Well, you know, you see that I'm in big size, I'm showing the years, because in effect it's sort of history. In fact, it's showing some of the archives. 1985, the work on toxins was going very successfully in Eugene lab, and also in the lab of Vadim Ivanov, and I was working with my colleague, and the most important, the most sound at that time was and still is Yuri Utkin. And the state prize was given to Bystrov, Ivanov, Grishin, Tsetlin, and other people from the other republics of the former Soviet Union. Well, Vadim Ivanov already showed this picture, but I didn't know this, but if you go along the corridor at our institute, you may see the special desk where the laureates of our institute are shown. You see Ivanov, Ovchinnikov, Kolosov, Sverdlov, and I'm glad that in the lower part of this desk is also photo showing our conversation with Eugene. And particularly, if I see correctly, I'm telling him about the tritium labeling of the membrane proteins. Please note that maybe not all youngsters know what are these squares here. This is the slides. And also in those days, to present a colored slide, you should take the slide, put the sort of pinpointer, and make the different colors. It was a sort of jewelry work. Now it's done much more elegant by computers. And also years, well, just several more slides to show that work, as already was mentioned, the work on toxins was going on quite successfully at this institute. And I'm glad that I was a sort of initiator of the huge European project where 15 labs and 5 small companies collaborated, and some of the discoveries have been done at our institute, like discovering the unusual structure of dimeric cobra toxin, or recently a peptide which does not contain any disulfide, but still acts on nicotinic receptor. So just to show that some work was going on, and that work was reflected in a talk which Eugene Grishin made at the General Meeting of the Russian Academy of Sciences. It was 2009, and so this was our joint work presented here, wonderful illustration, and it was, of course, a very great honor. I remember in all detail the huge hall and Eugene Grishin on the podium and showing them this fantastic creatures, spiders, snakes, and conus, mollusks, and so on. Well, we communicated with Eugene, and to tell you frankly, not always were sharing the same view. At first, I even put in Russian a sentence which Grishin told me, and a question, and also sort of a direction to somewhere. And I don't dare to show the Russian sentence here, but what you see here is, as I formulated, extremely polite translation. Victor, unfortunately, I cannot sincerely agree with the main line of your very interesting arguments. Well, but most often we were enjoying our time around, and luckily at our institute we have nice hall where there's a nice dates, jubilees, and people from the institute come and they smile and they drink. And this is just one of the photos. I don't remember whose jubilee it was, or his, or mine, but it was really a pleasant place and time. You know, it's nice that we both were working in the same field, and the field of neurotoxins and receptors, and it means that regularly we were attending the World Congresses on Toxins, and one of them, as I'm showing here, the Glasgow 2006, and it's not for chance, by chance, or for nothing. The inscription of this Congress, I put not here, but more here to this part, to hide that there are probably too many glasses with beer. Well, there are also congresses, not necessarily on toxins, but of general nature, and one of them was in Yalta, 2011. And here you see Eugene, you see his wife, and you see Leo Magazanik, fantastic electrophysiologist. And you see close to our legs, I'm showing that him and myself, we had a general basement because we are working both and are on cholinergic transmission. His earlier work were excellent on acetylcholinesterase, and I'm still attached to nicotinic receptor. But somehow it happened that I don't have a single publication with Leo. But you see publication quite recent, Magazanik, Grishin, known class of spider toxin. So I should confess I envy a little bit. In order you could see big names, Magazanik and Grishin, you may be surprised who was the first author. And I made this order et al., which normally you should after the names. I put them first so you could see these nice faces. Well, and one of the recent congresses in Honolulu, Hawaii, you see that, oh, sorry. You see that Grishin, Eugene, virtually all conferences with a wonderful, nice company of Zariana. And also, they have good money, and here in Honolulu, he was with a big group of his young co-workers. I also had my co-worker, head of the lab, Igor Kashevero, who in fact made this photo. So this is where pleasant thing, and here I should stress that what we have, these youngsters, excellent young scientists who are coming nowadays, these last several years to the Institute, and it showed that we should keep our all hopes alive. And also I should tell that we didn't have too many collaboration with Eugene, but in the recent years we've got a big grant. I indicated this, the name in Russian, only in Russian, молекулярная технология управления нейросигнализацией, грант Российского научного фонда, to make it more impressive. But it's a good grant, and in frames of this grant, yeah, I have 1 minute. We collaborated with Eugene Grishin, with Roman Yefremov, with his fantastic people who know how to make and predict a new structure by computer. Just one word about RNF. This grant demands that for each money you should thank only that grant which they give you. It's not easy because we made this work on chorotoxin, and I should tell that it was a sort of decade of work on toxin, which already was mentioned, so we could get really new results. And here I would like to stop and say what we have. I see that Grecian people are here, fantastically active. I'm also happy to have youngsters in my department. And you could be surprised why they look so strange, because they presented me a calendar, and then each month they used a special design for pictures, knowing that I'm interested in art, and it's sort of a challenge. Will our head recognize our faces in April and May or so on? So I would like to stop here and say thank you very much, and let us start the scientific conference with the indicated title, dedicated to memory of Eugene Grishin.